And then when we complete with lab, so throughout I will take attendance, and then we would be able to. So you can use your own virtual machine that you made yesterday. If I also drop a folder for most of you on your desktop, if you want to use my virtual machine, you have to extract it with 7-zip. I'm going to show you how to do that real quick. Okay. So because you are going to have virtual machine that will be. So when you see a little zip symbol, most of you already know that that means that it's compressed. Compression just what it is it changes the file structure by modifying the file header so that way the system would decrease the capacity. So if your file, let's say, is 15 gigabyte, you can shrink it down to 4 gigabyte, right? Like a fraction of it. And it's a quick way for us to be able to transfer file or to store file. But in order to extract it, you would right click, go to show more options, and 7-zip. Now, you can use Windows extraction tool, like right click and extract, if it is a .zip. Now, in the case that if it is a .7z, then you have to use the app, right? 7-zip is free. So if you want to use 7-zip, then you just go to 7-zip. So I right click, I go to show more options, I click 7-zip, extract files. Now, if you're using your own virtual machine, you don't have to do this, but if you use mine, you're going to have to do it. I put a folder on your desktop from here, okay? So when you extract it, it's going to unpack the file and it's going to put it back to its original state. And then from there, you're going to double click the folder that you extracted and just double click the blue file. And it's automatically going to launch your VM. That's how you play it. So you find the blue VBox file, and when you see boot from CD, DVD, just let it go. Do not press enter key. Because if you do, then you have to reinstall it again. We don't want to reinstall it again. Remember what we talked about, like how the USB or the DVD is bootable, right? Just imagine that it's still in there and the system is going to revert to it. So we haven't removed it yet. So, if you don't touch anything on the keyboard, it's just going to boot to your Windows. So all you have to do is open up the folder that you made yesterday, right? Which shows like this. Or if you, after you extracted my virtual machine, right click, 7-zip, extract files, or right click, extract files. Then open up the folder that you extracted. Don't use the zip folder. It's going to crash. Double click the blue file and it's going to play your VM. So the VBox file is what you need. And your drive, your virtual disk, your C actually is the orange file. Okay? It needs these two. And the logs right here, I'm going to explain this because a lot of my upper class students, they just play the virtual machine without knowing. So the logs and the VBox prev file is your state file. It keeps the last modification, the last changes you made in that virtual machine. Okay? So that's how your virtual machine can go back to the configuration that you made, the drive that you created, the folder that you linked to that drive yesterday. Okay? Now, if you wanted to make it go back to the original when you first install it, you delete the logs and the pref file, the previous file. It deletes the state. Okay? That's really easy. And if you want to get rid of the virtual machine, delete the folder. That's all. Now, your player might keep a library, which is like what it played, kind of like, how the playlist on your phone, but if the file's not there, it cannot play. So I'm going to log in with the login that I created yesterday. So CIS-824A, lab 3. I'm going to check my cap is on.
Mine doesn't still load yet.
Oh, because because it's the virtual machine he created, so he doesn't have a.
This one here?
Yeah, just click on the screen. Move the mouse to. Everything just frozen.
Maybe not. Sorry. Maybe no exclamation point. I'm gonna check my stuff right now. Hold on. I'm gonna pause the video. Okay, let's re-record. Yep. It's still gonna work. Yeah, that's a VirtualBox software issue. But if you have really bad errors, it's gonna show you on the right panel right here. It will give you an error code right here. That's how they track their error, right? Okay, so if you have your desktop running and your virtual machine working, you're gonna begin at step 9. And I'm gonna do that with you. Some of you can catch up as you go, and some of you are already ahead. So on your virtual machine desktop, remember, we have to distinguish between the inside and the outside system. The outside system is called the host system, and the inside system is going to be your virtual machine. This is my virtual machine. So what we're going to do is we are going to search for control panel. Okay. And control panel is basically, it's a panel where you can configure control. So alternatively, since Windows 7, Microsoft implementing settings as a feature that uses control panel, but interface the user better, because setting is more related to your mobile devices, right? Everybody's familiar with settings, so that's what they use. But control panel has always been around in all versions of operating systems for Microsoft. So we're going to open up control panel. And by default, this is what it looks like, a category view. And you can change your view. So in some system, you would see that it lists a little bit smaller. So there's different view option if you click on it, right? So we're going to keep the default so that way I can just quickly refer to that. So once the control panel is open, you are going to go to System and Security Applets. So Windows 10 and Windows 7 are very close because Windows 10 is an upgrade from Windows 11, right? They kept a lot of the things the same, especially in control panel. So you're going to click this right here. That applet is going to take you to other applets, okay? So anytime that you want to access your system, you can go to System and Security in Control Panel. In Settings, it's also System Information, right? So you're going to go to System and Security Applet, and then you're going to go down and you're going to search for Backup and Restore, which is in the middle. You see how it says Windows 7?
Yes.
Right? It's because Windows 7 feature is still there. It's the same in the build for Windows 10.
So click on that one?
Yeah, click on that one. If you click on the baby one underneath, it's still going to take you there. So what we're going to do is we are first going to create or set a backup. Now, I mentioned yesterday you cannot restore if you don't have a backup, right? Your system have to save a state. And with the backup, it's going to save a state of files and application depending on how you set it. So we are going to do a set backup. You see the little link right here on the right, you're going to click it.
Professor?
Yeah.
On the very far right, there's a gray rectangular box. How do you get rid of that?
Oh, you click the blue baby X on top of that.
And it disappears?
Yeah. Both. There you go. Yeah. So that's just a little notification panel that VirtualBox included. Okay, so when you click set backup, it's gonna present to you the media, right? That you would choose. Now I'm gonna teach you how you can use USB on virtual machines. And if you don't have a USB, I'll let you borrow the school drive. They're in this plastic box. When you're done, just put them back because the other students in the next semester, if they don't have these, they're gonna cry. Okay, because I have virtual machines on here for them. So I'm gonna take a drive and I'm gonna show you how to mount a drive, a USB drive in your virtual box. And if you have your regular USB, you can do the same.
One pro that follows the on my USB to this thing.
Yeah. So the concept is that you can only one machine can access that drive at a time. You understand? Just like how when you plug your USB into this computer, it cannot be plugged into another computer. Okay? You have to distinguish the difference between the outside computer, the host computer, and your virtual machine. Now, once you mount your USB into the virtual machine, the host machine can no longer access your USB unless you release it. It's like if I take my USB and plug it into his system, can I still use it on my computer? No, right? So that's the logic. This is really hard to grasp for some students. It's because they're like, I have my files on my USB. Now I cannot write answers on it because the inside machine has it. Well, then you have to release it from the inside machine to get it out, right? Okay, so I'm going to teach you how to mount it. So I plug in my USB. On the top of your virtual machine, you're going to see a thing called devices, a menu. You click on it, and you can do this with VirtualBox settings also as well.
Where did you click?
Devices at the top. Yes. Say it again. You don't have the menu? You're on VirtualBox or you're on your host machine? Oh, because you're full screen.
So devices is on the virtual machine.
Yeah, it's on the top right here.
Thank you.
So again, you'll see it'll say
I
USB
see.
something after.
My eyes are just in the middle of the screen.
Yeah, so under alternatively, those settings. I think it's just because you change. Oh, office, yes, it's a good. Office yourself, what do you want?
Then we'll pick the USB port, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Oh. The one that you just opened. We run it straight from the app. See if it does that.
That's good. I want to do this like this. When it appears on the sprite, so I select this one here. It's right here.
Yeah, it's one from your.
I just
The
added
S8 platform for
USB and plus. So I clicked on that
Hold on.
one.
Wait.
So now push refresh.
That's for release.
One more time.
Reflect?
Yeah, one more time. Exit out. And then. I think it's still not reading on there. What is it?
Sorry, I thought it was.
So you gotta do that. That
So this app requires
Yeah.
extension.
now. See, now it should be showing. Because it popped up there. But go to where I set up backup.
Yeah.
It should pop up now. There you go.
Gosh,
No,
talk about IT support.
I know, right? Just start off early.
You're getting hits that. Thank you.
Log in, we'll figure out how we're gonna back up with that. You have to map it out. We're in the process of doing it. Okay, sorry. If you cannot mount the USB, I will have to help you separately to use other drive. But to mount the USB, you would click devices, USB, and select the USB that you're currently using, like the brand. So I have the Western Digital from this case. And how do I know it's Western? If it says Toshiba on your drive, then it's a Toshiba, right? If it's the regular black one, it would say WD, then it's Western Digital. If I want to mount the USB that I had given you at the beginning of class, typically it shows up as general U disk. Okay, so whichever USB that you, but I highly recommend you use the school drive. It's either the Toshiba or the Western Digital. So if it shows up here as Western Digital, click it. At this moment in time, it's going to take your USB from the outside computer and show it inside. You see? Okay. How do I know? I click the File Explorer on my virtual machine and I see the element. That's the Western Digital element drive. Now, the data drive that we created yesterday, remember we mounted to the folder and call it data on Z, right? It shows up here because you mount the folder to the drive. Okay, got that? So how do I unmount my USB when I'm done? Because you have to give it back to the host computer. Otherwise, that drive cannot be seen. You would do the same. Click devices, USB, and uncheck. See how there's a check mark? Uncheck that mark. And that's it. That's how you mount the USB on virtual machines. Are we okay? So some of my students, they forget to unmount it and they cannot use it from the inside. So they have to boot the virtual machine unmounted. So when you're done with it, you need to give it back to the other system. Okay? So that way on the outside computer, because watch, I plug it in, but see, there's no element drive, just my other USB drive. It takes it away from the host. Okay, moving on. So now I have my USB, the school drive, on this computer. And then I would go back and I click set backup again, right? And then you can refresh it. So now it's going to be able to see if we can see. Now I can have a USB to backup to. Earlier I didn't, right? So when we mount drives, all that is we're going to let that system acknowledge that drive that is connected. Okay. another thing that you didn't know from yesterday, right? That's cool. All right. So we're going to select the USB drive and we're going to do the backup to it. So now I have the element. I'm going to click it. So make sure it's blue. Okay. And then go next. Very good. Now, if you want to back up everything on your current system right now, like the app. So I typically do a backup after I install things or add files to my computer. How often should you back up? Depending on how much you use. So if you change a lot in your system, then you need to back up a lot. But if you don't change so much, like you use the computer once in a blue moon, then you back up once in a blue moon, right? Does that make sense? So in a business, they use a computer frequently, so there's more frequent backup. Now, the difference between Windows choose and let me choose is if you let you choose, you can pick any files you want to back up. You might not want to back up the whole entire system because you did that before. So in a regular business environment, we do a full backup sometime at the beginning of the week. And we do a differential backup, the changes in the system throughout the week, because full backup takes a lot of space. You don't want to do a full backup every day. You do a full backup on Sunday or Monday, and then you do a differential or incremental backup throughout the week, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, etc., depending on how much you want to back up and how often. So in the lab, it tells you that you go to the next and you can let Windows choose. So if you let Windows choose, it's going to back up everything. Okay? And then you're going to save the settings. So I'm going to keep the default setting and go next. So if you're not sure what to back up, you select the first option. Okay? So it's going to tell you, it's going to back up all the users. Remember that every single user account has their own files. So if you're sharing your computer with your brother, sister, mother, right, father, neighbors, etc., all of those users. So in a regular business environment, like this computer as an instructor, I have other accounts on here that belongs to my colleagues, right? The people who used this computer before. So if you don't want to back up their stuff, then choose the second option. Let me choose. Then you can select the files and folder that you want to back up. And then the system image, which has your operating system, right? So we're going to keep everything and do save. Okay. Now this is going to be fast or slow depending on how big of a storage that you are backing up from, like how big of a computer and how much files you have on it. This computer has barely nothing, right? We only add the drive and a folder, so it's generally pretty fast. But if you have terabytes at home and if you have a bunch of stuff in your storage, then you set your backup and go eat dinner and come back. And sometimes longer than that, right? But just keep an eye on it once in a while. So what we can do is we can schedule it to a certain time that we want to back up. You want to back up when you don't use the computer, okay? So maybe if it's 7 p.m. on Sunday that you are going out and doing things, then you can leave your computer on and run backup. But most company, they run backup when their employees are not using their computer. Understand? So, and then you make a backup of a backup. So that way, in the first case, if your backup is corrupted, then you have a second backup. So if we're backing up 500 gig on the virtual machines, typically it's going to be minutes or, half an hour or something like that or less. So wait, right? So that's how you make a backup. Yeah, take a screenshot, paste it. We already learned how to make screenshot yesterday. So when is the backup scheduled? By default right now, it's every Sunday at 7 p.m. If you don't like it when it's done, click change setting, right? If you want it at 11 p.m., then change setting, change the clock, right? If you want it for a different day, then yeah, we typically schedule this where it's convenient and it's not being used. Because if you're using it and backing it up, right? As you put more data into it, it has to keep writing that new data, so it slows it down. Ideally, you shouldn't use when you do backup. Yeah. Oh, whatever password you put, you had type CIS-824A. Maybe the password that I recommended yesterday. So, or no password. So just press enter, see if it logs you in. I don't know what password you made yesterday. You made your machine yesterday. And if it doesn't, you can just click reset password and use the security answer. Burrito Valley load faces and then press enter. We have to remember the things we did yesterday. I know I don't. So you have to enable edit to type in the answer. Okay, so here,
Since we're doing this, remember I told you setting this? I think my virtual machine. Possible?
you can run, but it boots to Windows. I don't think it simulates virtual machine without you unless you remotely control it, but CIS-824A lab 3. Did that work? You put down your password? Okay, good. All right. As we wait for call me when it's not responding. It's gonna get so what you're gonna do is you are going to after you finish the backup, right? We're gonna change the settings and it's gonna ask you to change it to Saturday at 11 p.m. Right? Ideally, in the real world, you just put it the time that you don't use your computer.
So you go to change the setting from where?
After it's done, we have
It's
to wait
done.
for it's done, right? So change setting is under the schedule. It's right there.
I see.
And then, so you first have to back up to do the restore because you cannot restore without backup files. And with Microsoft will give you the BKP file. Enough space. Yeah, so it needs, so your drive has 15 gigs and it doesn't have that, right? So so we need to stop the backup. I think you meant to move the regular speed test. So basically this requires at least 50 gigabyte and you only have 15 gigabyte. So so it's saying that your media is not enough. So it did not finish, right? School draft.
So when we change the setting, we just do the same steps again.
No, just change the time. I'm teaching you to schedule your backup at a different time. Not the same thing again. We're just gonna set it up at a different time. Okay, so yeah, if you need one, there's one right there. So so first I'm gonna unmap your other USB from my virtual machine. So just the picture box, and that's gonna give it back to the other computer. Yeah, so my computer. So plug this in, and this is a Western digital element. Yeah, so we just gotta make sure we map the right one. So device is USB, right? Western digital, that one. Now it's gonna put it back on the inside. You can check. See what shows. You can check it's here. It's drive E, okay? Because the other drive E, I don't. So now we can go back to this. So the two said, new drive that you have. There you go. Work now. Give me a second, let me help you. Sure. Let me see your desktop one. Yeah, so this one is mine. This one is yours. This one is yours. This is the one that we just played. Okay. This one is the one that we did yesterday. So. This one out. I'm gonna put this one over here. So not in there. This is. Page. It's gonna put this other folder here. This is yours, right? This is mine. I'm gonna play from mine. Okay, so when it's done, we'll call me over. I'll help you. Okay, so when we're done with the backup, we're gonna click change settings. So in the case that if you have complication with your backup or you want to use a different drive for your backup in the future backup, you can do change setting, attach another drive, right? Like another USB, then it shows up here, then you can select that, right? But it also allows you to, modify the time. Let me see. I just want to follow the lab instruction. So what we want to do is we want to repeat the steps and then we can modify and change this. So, but you have to click change scheduling, and that's important. Okay. So if I do change, and so if you want to manage the space, you can also change that as well. So if we come back to here, if we want the same drive, or we can refresh the drive. And so if we want to put in password credential, why is it making me, hold on a second. Oh, it says, yeah, go next. And I want to show you, let me choose real quick so you can see. Okay. So you can just back up like your own stuff, right? Or a specific thing on C drive. You don't have to back up everything. Like if you don't want to back up other users, then you can just not select their folder because if you let the Microsoft choose, it's gonna select everything, right? So let's say that I only want to back up my file, my user account. Okay, then I can just select that. And then here is when you go to the next step, then you are going to do change schedule. So if I want to change the schedule to Saturday, I click the day and I click Saturday and then I click the time that I want, which is 11 p.m. Okay, so when you select let me choose, you have more control on what kind of file that you want to back up because typically we would do a full backup and then anything that changes after that. So you can back up specific folder or file or files that belong to specific user accounts and so on. Because if you do a full backup every single time, it's going to take up a lot of space on your backup drive. Okay, so once you're done, right, you can do save and exit, and it should refresh it to the time that you change it to, and that's what I want you to screenshot, right? So you can leave the system on and walk away from it, and it's gonna go, when that time comes, it's gonna do a backup. So it's a good practice to do a backup occasionally because if you don't have a backup, then your system crashed and you're going to lose everything that you have changed. Okay? So once you have a backup, then you're going to restore. Okay? But I'm going to teach you how to also do a backup from command line. Remember we talked about command line yesterday, command prompt? Okay, so in your virtual machine, I'm going to pull it up like this. So now I can close the control panel backup tool. I'm going to go to my search bar and I'm going to type in CMD for command prompt and it's going to open up. Okay, like this. But if you run it this way, it's just the account that I log in. I don't want that. I have a misstep. Sorry, now I have to go here. Okay, type CMD, and when this open up, you're going to do run as administrator. This gives you higher privilege. You cannot do a backup as a regular user. You can only back up your own stuff as an elevated user. So we have, when we run it in command prompt, we have to run it as an administrator. And this pop-up, you're going to say, yes, that's just Windows Firewall, making sure. You see the path is different. It's system 32 versus the user account folder. Okay? So it tells you to do this. Now, it's important that you type your syntax properly. Okay? So remember that this is going to be drive E, which is my USB. How do I know? I go to the File Explorer. I look, and the drive letter is drive E. Understand? Okay. So in such sense that when I execute this command, it's going to do the same thing that I did in control panel. My whole goal is to teach you how to do this. So if you don't have control panel, you can still do it in command prompt. Okay? All right. So I'm going to come back to here. And I'm going to do a WB lowercase admin, which is window backup administration space start backup. That means immediately going to run backup dash no space backup target space. I'm sorry, colon. And here you're going to drive either put your drive capital E or lowercase e. I think it should take also. Space dash include. This is when we select only C drive. You can do lowercase c. I think I'm gonna do lowercase e. So that way it's easy for you. Don't put the X. I highlighted the X. You need to replace that with drive E or D or whichever drive that it's mounted as. And then we're going to do all critical. That means it's going to do all critical system files. Now I have to. And then I think it's quiet, right? So quiet means that it's not verbose. And when that happens is it's not going to give you all the status as it goes, like line by line. So we want it to be like less display is when we say quiet. And if it is successful and you get no error, it's going to show you retrieve information and backup is in operation for drive E, right? It's making a shadow copy. So now you know how to do a backup with command prompt. You can do this. All Windows operating system have command prompt, whether home version or pro version. So when you apply for a job and they ask you for IT, right? So you can add this to your resume, right? Knowing how to run Windows backup using Windows backup administration tool in command prompt. But you already know how to do control panel. So I want to teach you how to do it both ways. Okay. All right, it's finished. Open this up, open this up, open this up. It's the same name. Back to stop. Yeah. Stop. So it shows you, right? It's making backup of C drive. And then when it's done, it's going to say complete. Isn't that cool? But there's also PowerShell way to do it. Not all CIS-25 students. I'm just bragging.
You're trying to roast me because I cannot do that, lady.
No, I'm saying go and talk to CIS-25 students or the one to complete. Do you know how to do Windows backup? Do you know how to do it in command prompt? Document show me how. No. All right, take a screenshot of that showing the status of your command prompt. And you don't have to finish the backup, right? But if you terminate it early, just keep in mind that you have processes in queue. So it's going to take a little bit of time to get it resolved, right? To end the process. But now, as you can see, as you wait, it's going to give you the percentage, which is full. When it gets to 100%, then the C drive is done. Okay. But you can back up other drives too. All you have to do is replace, right, that drive with another letter drive. So if you have drive D or drive N, you can do that. Yeah. We're gonna reset the password. Okay. And then now the new password, just put in CIS-824A, like that. Okay, all cap lock, so you remember. I know we shouldn't be using, low security password, but, we can always reset that to better. Just trying to get through the slab. Okay. So once you have your backup created, then you can restore from it. So I teach you how you can create a restore point and be able to go through and make a restore point. And so the second part is generally pretty easy. You just follow the steps and I'll walk you through that once I do that. And And then if we have time, then we can get to part C. Okay. So this is, on the A plus, a lot of the certification question is not just multiple choice question. Sometimes it's a task-based questions. So those you're gonna have to show, like they're gonna prompt you like to do something, and you have to show that you can do it. So we can set the settings of the configuration to, so we can get to step 50 fairly quickly after we have a restore point. So it's not very difficult to make a backup, right? You saw it's very quick too if you don't have too many files. Okay, right, start at step 9 in the lab. Yes, open up the lab document and start with step 9. And that gives you only about 41 steps to complete 50 steps. So I hope that after this lab, you can go home and you can schedule your backup, and then do occasional backup is okay, or regular backup if you need to.
It's giving me no volume. So I thought I did everything right, but it's saying no volume has been included. Backup. So. I missed a space. Oh, there's space on this.
Yeah, because there are different options. So they're like parameter to functions.
Spaces.
So it doesn't it cannot separate the parameter. So it includes C of by it. Yeah.
And there's a second.
Yeah. Because if you put it together, it's gonna try to think. So I'm done now, right? And it tells you what it's backup. So the reserve is your system state information, and C is your operating system, right? And then whatever that you installed on your operating system is also gonna back that up. So if you install new apps on your mobile or your computer, you should try to back it up. But the way that our smart devices are backed up is typically you cloud a lot of things, like you sync your contacts and things to your Google or your iCloud, right? Depending on which system you use. So the more information you add, the more frequent you're gonna have to do a backup. That's just a practice. As I mentioned to you, I was a backup operator for a long time. And it was kind of fun for me but they would only contact me when they have problems restoring. So in case system crashed, so I would back up and then I would catalog the backup so that way they know like which backup is which. Now you do a lot of this to remote servers, which is cloud, and you hope that nothing physical happened to your internet connection. So in the case your system crashed, you just connect to your backup storage and you pull it. But in the case that if you don't have internet connection, you would have to go to the local drive that you back up your data to. So that's how it works. And we can do the next part.
Or see.
Okay.
See the. That's fine.
Yeah, so for Pro, let me see. Should be that. But you have the recovery option there, right? I think it's under that. Yeah. Or system restore.
Yeah.
System image recovery. So the image, this is the reserve that we did. We did it when we did the backup. So there's, just dashing one, but.
Forever, but I'm almost there, 80%.
Now I'm.
I miss these floppies.
So I think you have to.
The desk is a little bit.
Small memory, everything is done.
It's easier.
Restore. Yeah, sometimes they put it under, I think it's under restore. Yeah, it's under restore. Okay. And then if you want to close command prompt, you can just do an exit, right, to close. That's in general for all Windows command line.
Just typing the word exit
Yeah.
right on the text on the window.
If it's done, yeah, after you screenshot, then you can do an exit. Okay. All right. Yeah, after step 25, then you can do an exit. All right, for system restore, we are going to create a restore point. So you're going to do a search. You can say create a restore point. It kind of fill that out for me. And that is in control panel. It looks a little bit different than what you saw, but basically in control panel, if you click one of those applets, it's going to take you here. We can search directly to go there, right? And it should see my drive that I have. I have the data drive, which is drive Z. Which is mounted, and then I have the element that I have mounted through the USB. And then I have my local drive, which is my operating system, and it says system. So what we're going to do is we are going to go to the system property page. So it's already, let me see. And then you're going to select your drive, right? So what we're going to do is we can configure the drive space and we can turn on the system protection. So, but you want to restore, so you want to set restore for your C, understand? You don't want to restore the USB because the USB is the component, the drive that you want to save to. So you're going to click on your local, you're going to configure, and you can turn on your system protection. Do you get what I mean? Because the restore is really for the C. In the case that the C crash, your operating system crash, not the USB. Okay? And then we can apply, but you can also change on how much storage that you want for usage. And they did this so that way you don't, do you want protection for the entire disk? That might be very large, or you can just change it to what you want. So we're just going to keep it default. We can click apply and okay. So what that does is it turns on the protection for your OS, for your main system drive. Okay? Does that make sense? And then you can also do create a restore point, and you can name it whatever that you want. So the whole point in this is to be able to set it up. So we can create a restore point, right? And then we can go next, and then we can just name it for our virtual machine. Sorry. All right, so we can click create, and then we just say CIS-824A or something like that. You can just name it whatever you want. Typically, when we catalog this, I would have to name it to like the day and the time and the instance that I create and the system information. So typically the server name, and so on. So if you create, you give it a name, and then you close, and it create that particular restore point. So if you don't have a restore point, your system will not be able to restore. So if you go through now some system like laptop they are sold with a restore point. Because the manufacturer like Lenovo or Dell, they create that restore point to, they might have add a bunch of apps on there like gaming apps and services and things for you when you bought that laptop, and that's what you get, right? So we can make a restore point. And okay. So once you have a restore point, you can just take a screenshot for me and you can close it. So system restore is right here. So if you want to open the wizard up and do system restore, you can go there. And there's my restore point, you see? So how do I know if I have a restore point? You click this. And then you go next, the wizard, because Microsoft loves step-by-step to make sure that you know how, right? And then if you have more restore point, you can select this checkbox, right? Or, and then you can also click scan affected programs, and then you select the restore point, you go next. So outside of UEFI, which is the background in your settings, in the case that you don't get to the operating system, UEFI is really designed for that, right? You have it through control panel. And you can also search for restore and it will take you here and it can walk you through the wizard. So they made it really easy, and you can also do it in command line as well or PowerShell. So
if you don't change the maximum usage, it will do it automatically.
Yeah, it will just default to 0 bytes, right? And then so you can just name it. So I would recommend you name it like the date that you create the restore points, so that way when you look at it, you're like, oh yeah, that was when I installed this, and so you can find that information there. For the next part, for part C, it talks about unified extensible firmware interface. This is a software that's in place of BIOS, so that way you can troubleshoot your system, right? So what we can do is we can right click the Windows button. We can go to update and security. We can go into recovery and then advanced startup. That's where you get it, but you still have to access the OS. Okay. But let's say that if I don't want to go through settings, can I go directly into update and security? Let's check. Right? Unfortunately, they don't tie this to the search option, but it does allow you to go to check for updates. So you have to revert to settings. Okay. I wonder if we do recovery options, it does take you there. Yeah, it's probably better if you search for recovery. I take that back. So yeah, you can just search for recovery. That's probably the easiest step that you can attempt there. And then for advanced setup, right? That's advanced startup here. You can also restart now. Bye. Have a good night. Oh, speaking of that, let me pause. I need to do attendance before more of you are taking off. It's already 8 o'clock. I'm not recording, okay? Okay, so is Ethan here? Yeah. Christian, Matthew, Elizabeth,
Here.
Christian Gray's here, Mr. Hassan's here. Gabriella? Kendall? Francisco, yes. Isabel Mejia, yes. John's here. Hugo just went. Josue. Janet, yes. Lawrence, yes. Joseph Rubio, yes. Jaden, yes. Kayla, yes. And Tin, yes. Did I miss anyone? Yes.
Yeah.
I got you, yeah. Okay. So we're gonna do a restart now, right? And then we're gonna click troubleshoot. So it's best if you just search for recovery. I think that's better than just going through the menu, but you can find it through many different menus. So we're gonna do restart now. And then we are going to go through and click advanced option, UEFI, and then take a screenshot. Okay. So here we are going to go down, use your arrow key on your keyboard. You cannot click. So we are going to do troubleshoot and then advanced options. But you can also reset your PC. So this is going to take you to the recovery. So if you want to revert the image, the operating system to the first version, the first iteration, you do this. But we're going to use your arrow key, go down to restore. So go right and then down to restore. And now it's going to go to that restore point that I made. Okay, that's it. That's all she wrote. Did you make some restore point? Yeah, sometimes it crashed. Oh my god, it sucks. But you can close it and then wait a little bit and then turn it back on.
Not seeing the time.
You have to mount the drive. So click devices, USB. Did you plug it in? Yeah, USB. And then select Western Digital, just second on that. There you go. Now you can see it.
So I'm on this stuff right here. You want me to click yes or no that on this stuff in there?
I mean, if you want to wait for the restart, you click yes. If you don't, then just screenshot that.
Just put yes in there?
Yeah.
Or put no in there?
You're welcome. Okay. I mean, if you want to wait for this, right? But I'm just gonna go back. I'm gonna restart. So, but my whole point is that if you want to look at UEFI for troubleshooting, that's where it's gonna be. So you can restart and go back, revert back to the first time that it has the operating system, the first iteration, like the manufacturer settings. You can revert back to the last time that you changed. You can, so the UEFI options, your recovery options, the advanced option gives you a lot of things. Okay. But let me come back to the recording so that way we wrap it up.